Hi everyone, my name is Crystal. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about irregular cycles and why they happen and what to do about them. Now this topic is very near and dear to my heart because for a very long time I struggled with an irregular cycle. It happened as soon as I pretty much got my period in my teens, and it was going on until probably about 5 years ago. And because I didn't know much about menstrual health, I never really knew it was that big of a problem. But let me tell you, an irregular cycle is a bit of a problem. So an irregular cycle is a menstrual cycle that is either under 21 days long or over 35 days long. Now, if you are on either spectrum of that and that is regular for you, you get your period every 35 days, then that might be normal for you. Of course, with that being said, as you guys know from most of my videos, there's always going to be variations on that. So if you are a teenager and you've just started your period or you've had your period for a couple years, having an irregular cycle is gonna be normal for you. Your estrogen receptors need to mature for you to have a regular cycle, and that can take quite a few years. So if you are in your teens and you're having an irregular cycle, it's okay. That is pretty normal. Now, of course, once you move into being a young adult, then you're gonna wanna see your hormones regulate, and then you should come into having a regular cycle. And if you don't, then that is when you want to probably start looking at some root causes of why you might be experiencing a irregular cycle. Now, on the flip side, if you are over the age of 40, that is also going to be a time when you are going to experience irregular cycles. And that is because when we age and we get a little bit older, we enter perimenopause. And most women enter perimenopause when they are in their 40s, although it can happen as early as 35 years old. Now, perimenopause is that time leading up to menopause, and it can actually last for about 10 years. And so that time is usually when you experience an irregular cycle because your hormones are changing. But if you are age 20 to age 40, you might be wondering, well, why is my cycle irregular? Like, what are the causes of having an irregular cycle when you are in your menstruating years? And so one of the biggest causes is stress. And so stress management is so important. I know for me, stress really affects me. I always make the joke that I have a very sensitive nervous system because it doesn't take much for me to crumble. But because I know that about myself, I have very strong stress management techniques in place to help me not crumble and to help me be more resilient. And I know for me personally, the most benefit I see is when I include yoga in my daily routine, and you don't have to make yoga look fancy. It can be like 5 minutes before bed. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I know I see such a benefit with that. And so stress management is going to look different for everyone. If you're struggling with an irregular cycle and you think, well, I'm not that stressed out, you might have to dig a little bit deeper to see what is going on in your day, because even though you might not perceive you're very stressed, your body is going to perceive that stress and it is going to act accordingly. So even if you might not feel stressed, it doesn't mean your body doesn't feel stressed. So I always just make sure to really drive home the idea of having really good stress management in place, because stress can really affect our cycles. So another cause of irregular cycles is undereating. So undereating is something that I think can be a very big struggle for some people. I know, undereating can be motivated by weight loss. It could also be something that people might not necessarily know that they're doing. You just have to watch your diet. Diet can play a huge part in our cycle health. Maybe you're following like a low fat or low carb diet. Those two diets in themselves kind of just don't really set you up for the best cycle health, because carbs and fats are just really important for our hormones. So if you are struggling with an irregular cycle, just, take some time to sit with yourself and to kind of go over your nutrition and just make sure that you're getting everything that you need, that you're eating in a way that supports your hormones. You're eating a lot of whole foods, you're not eating a lot of processed stuff, and you're making sure to hydrate your body. Diet can just play so many roles in our health, and a poor diet can cause us to have cycle issues. So another thing that can be the root cause of an irregular cycle is any hormone conditions like thyroid disease, disease, PCOS, low estrogen, or just different hormone imbalances. And that is why it's so great to talk to a doctor if you're struggling with your cycle health, because, you know, if you have an underlying hormone condition, and if you don't know that, you know, you can try all the herbs in the book and you can eat like all the good food, but at the end of the day, if you have an underlying hormone issue, you need to know that, because supporting that is your number one goal. Another great reason to talk to your doctor is because an irregular cycle can also be caused by celiac disease. And so that is an often overlooked cause of cycle issues. Now with celiac disease, that means that you have an allergy to wheat. And so if you are eating wheat containing products, that can be damaging your intestine and making it harder for you to absorb nutrients. And so you really, really want to make sure that if you do go and talk to your doctor and you're having trouble resolving why you're having an irregular cycle, just ask them about celiac disease and ask them if you can be tested, because that can also be a cause. And of course, medications can also cause an irregular cycle. So if you are on any kind of medications, I always think it's a great idea to kind of look at the side effects or be informed about what you're taking, because that can cause irregularity in your cycle as well. Now, a few other things that can cause you to have an irregular cycle would be breastfeeding, which I think is pretty obvious, but I wanted to throw that in there as well, because breastfeeding can cause you to either have no cycle for a little while or to have a very irregular cycle. However, as your baby stops drinking so much milk and starts moving to solids, your period should return and look like how it did before you were pregnant. And the last two things that can be a cause for an irregular cycle are traveling and night shifts. So both traveling and night shifts can actually cause you to have a disruption in your circadian rhythm. And they're two overlooked causes of an irregular cycle, because what can happen is if you're traveling around ovulation, your ovulation can actually be delayed, because usually when we travel, we might be a little stressed out. You know, if you're like me, you might not have like the best time traveling, and that can cause you to have a delay in ovulation. Or if you're changing time zones, it can actually cause you to have your period really early or very late. Now for me, I live in Canada, and so the first time I went to the UK, my period actually came like a week and a half early. And it wasn't great because I totally wasn't prepared for it. And so that just goes to show that traveling different time zones can like really affect things as well. And of course, night shifts can affect your cycle because they also affect your circadian rhythm. And your circadian rhythm is really important for just your overall normal functioning. Now, if you've been working night shifts for a very long time, your body might be used to it. But if you work night shifts periodically, it can cause some issues with your cycle. So if you do have an irregular cycle, and your nutrition's good, your stress management's good, all that kind of stuff, just sit down and see like, oh, maybe it's my work hours. Like, you know, maybe those night shifts I do for overtime are not treating me well, or hey, maybe it's because I went traveling last month and now things are a little bit weird. So there you have it. Those are pretty much all the causes of irregular cycle. I'm just trying to think if I forgot anything. I think the one I forgot was over-exercising. So usually over-exercising and under-eating go hand in hand, which is really unfortunate because exercise itself isn't bad, it's pretty great. But sometimes when you add exercise on top of a very calorie deficient diet, it can just be a recipe for disaster. So if you do exercise, just make sure that you're fueling your body properly and just taking care of yourself. And I know another thing that's really popular right now is intermittent fasting. And it's just really good to sit down and just look at these things that you're doing in your life. And if intermittent fasting is one of them, and you've noticed that your cycle just isn't really the same, I would just then question if intermittent fasting was really fitting into my life. And, a lot of times people might think that these popular things are great for everyone, but that is so far from the truth. So many of us just don't do well when we're in a fasted state. So if you are struggling with an irregular cycle, I just really encourage you to just kind of investigate more deeply, because at the end of the day, an irregular cycle is not normal and it should be looked at because there might be something going on with ovulation, there might be something going on with your luteal phase, you might have an issue with your progesterone production, and long term there can be complications with that. And so I think it's just really important that we talk about this stuff, and I hope you guys learned something in this video. I know for me, as someone who struggled with an irregular cycle for so long, I was really embarrassed about it. I looked pretty healthy on the outside, but obviously on the inside my body was kind of struggling, and it brought a lot of shame because I don't think anyone likes to feel that way. And that is why I talk about these things, and that is why I share this information, because shame and menstrual health should not be in the same room. And I don't want anyone to ever feel ashamed for learning more about their body or for having any menstrual cycle issues, because you know what? That's okay. It's okay, and there is hope. You can get better. I know for me, it took a little bit of work, but I have a regular cycle. I've had a regular cycle for over 4 years now, and I'm very proud of myself for the work that I've done to get there. And so I just want to let you guys know that it is possible to regulate your menstrual cycle and have a regular cycle, but you just need to figure out the root cause of what is going on and what is affecting your health. And I really hope that this video gave you guys a little bit to think about, and I just really appreciate you watching. Your cycle matters so much, and I just want you guys to know that I'm here for you. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!